Hi, today I'm going to be comparing two graphics cards, the one being the Dell R5 240 and the other one being the Dell HD 7570. I mentioned the fact that they're Dell cards because they have a bit different specifications to their normal counterparts.
First off, the HD 7570, released back in 2012, featuring a gigabyte of GB DDR5 memory on a 120-bit memory bus. Despite its 7000 series naming, it's actually on the Terascale 2 architecture as opposed to the GCN1 architecture, making this an HD 6570 rebrand. Software-wise, it features DirectX 11 capability, OpenGL 4.5, and OpenCL 1.2. However, no Vulkan support. Next off, the R5 240, featuring a gigabyte of GDDR3 memory on a measly 64-bit memory bus, also having a gimped 8X PCIe slot, is not really suitable for PCIe 2.0 motherboards. However, it has some good sides. Features the GCN 1.0 architecture, which merits it DirectX 12, or at least partially, OpenGL 4.6, OpenCL 2.1, and Vulkan.
Software-wise, we're running Voidlinux together with KD Plasma Desktop and KWin under Wayland. Hardware-wise, we're rocking a i5 3340, single channel, 8GB stick of RAM. This is on purpose because the CPU actually has a broken pin, and that broken pin interfaces with that second memory channel, so I can't physically put in more memory other than buying a new CPU, so that's a bit of a bust. I'm using a SSD micro SATA drive. It's MLC, really old, but kind of still works. A special software modification I did is for the R5 240, so that it uses the AMD GPU driver, which I have measured in the past is faster than the Radeon driver. A tutorial video for me is either in the description or in the card. This is the actual machine, a Dell optiplex 9010, which is also the reason I have to use these low-profile graphics cards and kind of the motif for these tests. As you can see, there are two low-profile PCIe slots. It's quite easy to get into these old OEM machines. You simply press on a lever, and it pops out, revealing quite a jam-packed little array of components. Here we have the CPU. Here's our graphics card that will be changing out, and also a Wi-Fi card.
When it comes to games, we'll be testing Flatout 2, TF2, Mafia 2, Minecraft Java Edition, and Goat Simulator. In Flatout 2, I used these graphics settings. Game-wise, we have one round of the Race in Timberland 1 map using the Crusader car. Numbers in Flatout 2 really surprised me. Despite the 7570's age, it actually won by a significant margin, 15% in the average FPS, managing 60 instead of 51.8, probably due to a VSync error, so possibly we could have gotten even more FPS. And even in the 0.1% lows, we're seeing a drastic improvement from 25 to 41 FPS, making Flatout 2 way more playable on a 7570. Next up, Team Fortress 2. Here we have a choice between two versions. The newer version, the 64-bit version, using DXVK, and the older 32-bit version using TOGL, Valve's special sauce DirectX 9 to OpenGL translation layer. I used the lowest graphics settings at 1920 by 1200. Because the HD 7570 does not support Vulkan, it could not run the newer DXVK 64-bit version of the game. However, both cards can run the TOGL, older legacy version of Team Fortress 2. Comparing the two cards in the legacy version, we can see that the R5 240 actually wins out with just a small margin of error mistake at 1% minimum FPS. However, when we add the DXVK numbers, we can see that the R5 240 is definitely a better choice for TF2. I know it's a bit like comparing apples to oranges, but comparing the DXVK version of TF2 with the R5 240 and the TOGL version in the 7570, we can see a dramatic increase in FPS, anywhere from 15 up to 182% increase. Mafia 2 next. Here, we have a choice between WinD3D, a DirectX to OpenGL translation layer, and DXVK, DirectX to Vulkan layer. I used the lowest settings I could find in Mafia 2, however keeping the resolution at 1920 by 1200. As for the game, I used its inbuilt benchmark, which you don't really see nowadays, do ya? Comparing the two cards using WinD3D, we can see that the 7570, just like in Flatout 2, wins. But this time, by not much. In fact, it's more within the margin of error. Again, comparing apples to oranges, the R5 240 using DXVK does win out by a significant margin. However, the 97th maximum percentile was a bit higher with the 7570. I was starting to worry that Mango HUD somehow decreased the FPS, so I also ran the numbers without Mango HUD and simply relying on the inbuilt benchmark to tell me the numbers. And as you can see, indeed the 7570 wins, but still not by much. We're talking like plus minus 2 or 3 FPS. This shows me that I more than likely have a bottleneck that is not showing the true potential of these cards. I'd say for this rare case, the HD 7570 slightly edges out the R5 240. Next off, Minecraft. Here I have 3 benchmarks. A mod pack for Prismlaucher is available in the description below. In that you'll find all the settings and worlds I used. First off, a void world. Here there's literally nothing except for a singular block of acacia log. This benchmark is supposed to stress out the graphics card, and the numbers here show that the HD 7570 just flat out wins, anywhere from a 38 to a 50% increase. Next off, Village on a server. This is kind of a mix of graphically intensive and CPU intensive. Here, we can see that the R5 240, with the exclusion of the 0.1% lows, actually wins and is definitely a more playable experience. You won't have access to this server, so I'll put the world files in the Prismlaucher mod pack. Next off, Benchmark World. This is a world I downloaded online. Here we can see the HD 7570 wins by almost all accounts, except for the 97th percentile. Well, a bit inconclusive, but I'd say I'd recommend the R5 240 for most people. However, the HD 7570 is perhaps a bit better for GPU-bound situations in Minecraft, like shaders and stuff. Last but not least, Goat Simulator. Here, use the lowest settings as you can see on screen. Spawned and headed for the nearest gas container, which I headbutted. Numbers now. The HD 7570 wins. However, similarly, like in the benchmark Minecraft world, the 97th maximum percentile is higher on the R5 240. Generally, I'd say if you're playing a lot of Goat Simulator, you ought to use the HD 7570. Conclusion time. The HD 7570 wins in Flatout 2 and Goat Simulator. The R5 240 has a definite win in Team Fortress 2 and a slight edge in Minecraft. Both of these cards basically tie in Mafia 2. However, this is likely a bottleneck from my side.
So, what am I going to choose? The R5 240 or the HD 7570? Well, despite the HD 7570's perhaps better performance and better all performance in most games, I'm going to choose the R5 240. Its Vulkan support means that it'll run games that just simply won't run using OpenGL. So, grab that, slot it in, line it up, and get that little hook there. Bloop. And we're off to the races.